guys, this is Kimberly Arguales, and for today's video, we are going to learn more about the Psychoanalytic Social Theory by Horney. So, let's get started. Horney is a German psychoanalyst who contributed greatly in the field of neurosis and psychoanalytic. Now, Karen theorized the human society, cultural factors, and childhood are more important than genetic factors when it comes to developing personality. Although she was highly influenced by Sigmund Freud psychoanalysis, she rejected many of Freud's observations and emphasized the cultural factors. Here are some biography of Karen Horney. So let's move on to the overview of psychoanalytic social theory. Psychoanalytic social theory of Karen Horney was built on the assumption that social and cultural conditions, especially childhood experience, are largely responsible for shaping personality. People who do not have their needs for love and affection satisfied during childhood development basic hostility towards their parents and as a consequence suffer from basic anxiety. Although Horney's writings are concerned mostly with the neurotic personality, many of her ideas can be applied to normal people. These chapters look at Horney's basic theory of neurosis, compare her ideas to those of Freud, examines her views on feminine psychology, and briefly discuss her ideas on psychotherapy. So here are the assumptions of Horney's. First, it emphasizes on culture in shaping personality. Second, the importance of childhood experiences. And third, neurosis is the result of man's attempt to find a path through wilderness of unknown dangers. According to Horney, neurosis is an attempt to make life bearable, irrational defense against anxiety that become a permanent part of personality and affects behavior. Neurotic needs are unrealistic, unreasonable, and indiscriminate. Neurotic needs is much more intense. Neurosis categorized of excessive anxiety and degree of social disconnect. But for Karen, she looks neurosis distorted way of looking at the world and oneself. In childhood, Horney believes that childhood has a great effects on the behavior as we grow. If we feel unloved, unwanted, and so much negative feelings dominate our childhood, there will be a big problems when we grow. Abused children has a big possibility to be aggressive. Parental indifference. This usually defined as basic evil, the road to hell, lack of warmth and affection in childhood, but this is not based on parents' intention, rather than it is the base of the child perceptions. So let's move on to basic hostility. This refers to the first reaction to the parental indifference is anger, protesting injustice. Parents are unwilling to love. Parents are incapable to give love. Some children find hostility as the habitual response to life difficulties. So let's move on to the basic anxiety. Horney believed that the nutritive soils of neurosis is basic anxiety, fears to helplessness, and abandonment. Basic anxiety is not a neurosis itself. It's more important for children to be safe. So let us distinguish the hostility and anxiety. If the parents start neglecting the children, and if the children start repressing, it actually creates basic hostility towards their parents, and it can develop insecurity of a child, and it actually create a feelings of fears. That is the basic anxiety. To protect against anxiety, the brain uses defense mechanisms which are the affection, submissiveness, power, and withdrawal. Affection is desperately seeking love, purchasing temporary companionship on material needs. Submissiveness is blindly surrendering to a certain people or institution. For example, submitting yourself to a certain organization such as religious organizations. Power is possessions or prestige. It's usually dominating over and humiliating others. Withdrawal is emotional detachment, emotional disconnecting and withdrawing from other people to protect oneself from getting hurt. Compulsive drives. Neurotic people have the same problem affecting normal people except that they experience it or a greater degree. So, it is normal to experience basic anxiety, but to neurotic people, they will experience greater degree or mas malala pa. Normal people use a variety of defensive maneuvers in useful way, while neurotic people compulsively repeat the same strategy in an unproductive manner. Now let's move on to the 10 neurotic needs. The first neurotic needs is the neurotic needs for affections and approval. For normal people, it is okay that we need affection, but we don't expect it from everyone we meet. But in neurotic people, it is when we have indiscriminate needs to please others and be liked by them. It is like to please others and try to live up to other people's expectation. The second is the neurotic needs for partner. For more normal people, we all want to have a partner that we can love and can love us back. But in neurotic people, partner is someone who will take over one's life. This includes the idea that love will solve all of one's problem. They attach themselves to a powerful partner to compensate their lack of confidence. The third neurotic needs is the neurotic needs to restrict one's life to narrow border. For normal people, it is okay that we want our lives to be simple to manage, but in neurotic, it is when someone wants to be undemanding, satisfied with little, to be incompetitious. Who hasn't felt the needs to simplify life when it gets too stressful? They rather join a monastic order, disappeared into routine, or to return to the womb. It is like they want to lower their profile, avoid the limelight, force themselves to be content with very, very little. The fourth one is the neurotic need for power. For normal people, it is okay that we have power to improve, but in neurotic is when we think that power is for control over others, for the facade of omnipotence. The neurotic may be desperate for it. This is dominance for its own sake, often accompanied by a contempt for the weak and a strong belief in one's own rational power. They tend to exert power and control others to make themselves feel secure. Next is the neurotic need to exploit others and get the better of them. For normal, it is okay that we need to have an effect, to have impact, to be heard. But in neurotic, it can become manipulations and the belief that people are there to be used. It may also involve a fear of being used or looking stupid. You may have noticed that the people who love practical jokes more often than not cannot take being the butt of such a joke themselves. Next is the neurotic need for social recognition or prestige. For normal, we are social creatures and sexual ones and like to be appreciated. But in neurotic, these people are overwhelmingly concerned with appearance and popularity. They fear being ignored, be thought plain, uncool, or out of it. They want people attract attentions and trying to be important. That's the neurotic needs for social recognitions. The seventh one is the neurotic need for personal admiration. For normal, we need to be admired for inner qualities as well as outer want. We need to feel important and valued. But in neurotic, some people are more desperate and need to remind everyone of their importance. Their fear is of being thought nobody's unimportant and meaningless. That is why they need to continually admire by others. The number 8 is neurotic need for personal achievements. For normal, there is nothing intrinsically wrong with achievements, far from it. But in neurotic, some people are obsessed with personal achievements. They have to be number one at everything they do. Since this is, of course, quite a difficult task, you will find these people devaluing anything they cannot be number one in. That is why they want to defeat other people who stand in their way. This typically not good characteristic because they are ruthless. The number 9 is the neurotic need for self-sufficiency and independence. For normal, we should all cultivate some autonomy, but in neurotic, some people feel that they shouldn't ever need anybody. They tend to refuse help and are often reluctant to commit to a relationship. They tend to distancing themselves far from people they are getting close to. That is the neurotic need for self-sufficiency and independence. The last neurotic needs is the neurotic need for perfection and unsaleability. For normal, to become better and better at life and our special interests. But in neurotic, some people are driven to the perfect and scared of being thought. They can't be caught making a mistake and need to control it at all times. So they fear of looking weak and they never make mistake in a certain situation that make them look less than perfect. The 10 neurotic needs can be clubbed together in categories called neurotic trends. These neurotic trends: moving towards people, moving against people, and moving away from people. As you can see in the green color, moving towards people. They usually submitting to other people to protect themselves. They consider everybody to be hostile, lead to exploitative, aggressive, and exert power to other people. Moving against people, the red color, they usually think that everybody are a potential enemy. And the last one, the violet color, moving away from other. The isolating tendency to distance themselves from other people, never allow other to get closer from them. So let's move on to interphysics conflicts. Interphysics conflicts originate from interpersonal experiences. It can become part of the personal belief systems. They develop a life of their own and existence separate from interpersonal conflicts that gave them life. Interphysics conflicts has two aspects: the idealized self-image and the self-hatred. The idealized self-image, painting of godlike pictures of themselves. Feeling alienated from themselves, people need desperately to acquire a stable sense of identity. Under the idealized self-image is the is the search of glory. Search of glory, comprehensive drives towards actualizing ideal self. This is the tyranny of the shoulds. You should do this, you should do that. Kailangan dapat ganito, di dapat pwede ganyan. Like that. Also, it has three elements: the need for perfections, the neurotic ambitions, and the drive toward vindictive triumph. The next one is the neurotic claim. This is the search of glory. Neurotic build a fantasy world, a world that is out of the sync with the real world. They proclaim that they are special and therefore entitled to be treated in accordance to their ideal self-image. The last under the idealized self-image is the neurotic pride. This is the false pride based on the realistic view of the true self but on the spurious image of the ideal self. It means it's not true. So let's move on to self-hatred. Self-hatred is the irrational and powerful tendency to despise one's real self. When neurotic people realize that the real self does not meet the insatiable demands of their idealized self, they will begin to hate and despise themselves. It means that kung hindi mo nakuha yung gusto mo, mag-start ka na mag-hate sa iyong sarili. Or you start hating yourself. So under the self-hatred, there are 6 ways to express it. Number 1 is the relentless demands of oneself. This is the tyranny of the shoulds. Dapat ganito, di dapat ganyan, you should do this, you should do that. Second, the merciless self-accusation, or sinisisi mo ang self mo palagi. Next is the self-contempt, or you ridicule or doubting yourself, doubting your skills or talents, abilities. Next is the self-frustrations. If you don't get or na-achieve ang ganito, you will feel frustrated of something. Next is self-torment, or pinaparusahan mo ang sarili mo. And the last one is the self-distractions, or destroying your body. Make a destructive actions like pwede ka nang maglaslas. Let's move on to feminine psychology. For Horney, physics differences between men and women are not the result of anatomy, but rather of cultural and social expectation. Men who subdue and rule women, and women who degrade or invite men to do so because of the neurotic competitiveness that is rampant in many societies. Horney insisted that basic anxiety is at the core of men's need to subjugate women and women's wish to humiliate men. Horney found the concept of penis envy even less tenable. She contended that there is no more anatomical reason why girls should be envious of the penis than boys should desire a breast or a womb. In fact, boys sometimes do express a desire to have a baby, but this desire is not the result of universal male womb envy. Horney agreed with the adhere that many women possess a masculine protest. That is, they have a pathological belief that men are superior to women. This perception easily leads to neurotic desire to be men. The desire, however, is not an expression of penis envy but rather a wish for all those qualities or privilege which in our culture are degraded as masculine. Because of the culture and the society are responsible for psychological difference between women and men, Horney felt that it was not so important to try to find the answer to ask questions about differences as to understand and analyze the real significance of this keen interest in feminine nature. So, Horney concluded her speech by saying that once and for all we should stop bothering about what is feminine and what is not. Such concern only undermine our energies. Standards of masculine and femininity are artificial standards. All that we definitely know at the present about sex difference is that we should know what they are. Scientific differences between the two sexes certainly exist, but we shall never be able to discover what they are until we have first developed our potentialities as human beings. So these are the application of psychoanalytic social theory. The first is psychotherapy focused on development of self-realization through self-analysis. Next is it utilized some techniques as Freud. And the last one is successful when patient can assume responsibility for their psychological developments. Here are the goals of Horney therapy. It helps patients gradually grow in the direction of self-realization. Second, give up their idealized self-image. Third, relinquish their neurotic search for glory. And fourth, change self-hatred to self-acceptance. In addition, in psychotherapy, free association parents are asked to say everything that comes to mind, regardless of how trivial or embarrassing it may seem. They are also encouraged to express whatever feelings may arise from the associations. As with dreams interpretation, free associations eventually reveals patient idealized self-image and persistence but unsuccessfully attempts at accomplishing it. When therapy is successful, patients gradually develop confidence in their ability to assume responsibility for their psychological development. They move towards self-realization, and all those processes that accompany it, they have a deeper and clearer understanding of their feelings, beliefs, and wishes. They relate to others with genuine feelings instead of using people to solve basic conflicts. At work, they take a greater interest in the job itself rather than seeing it as means to perpetuate a neurotic search for glory. That's all, everyone. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something more about Karen Horney's psychoanalytic social theory.